Hey everybody, my name is Kristopher A. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Kristopher.
Again, I want to thank everybody for putting this meeting on, and it's an honor and a privilege to be up here. It's okay. Everybody gets nervous. I too get nervous sometimes, like now. My
I'm sorry. I thought I was going on again. Just kidding.
I too do get nervous. My hands start sweating and my heart starts palpitating, and I kind of feel like I got to go to the bathroom. But other than that, it's truly an honor to be here, to be able to share with you my experience, strength, and hope. Donna, awesome to hear you. I honor you. I love you. I think you're beautiful. Not that my opinion matters or anything. But again, I am an alcoholic, and I've been through this process the way that it's laid out with the help of the Big Book Step Study sponsor. Found a loving God within that process, and I've made all my amends. I have 2 new ones to make that I was just contemplating about. And I practice the latter steps and all the steps to the best of my willingness on a daily basis. And within this process, I have fallen in love with the surrender of it all. And I've fallen in love with the humanness of it all. And I've fallen in love with making mistakes so that I can learn from them. Just a little bit of history. I come from, I wouldn't even consider it a broken home, but most people in the outside world would. I have a full brother, a half brother, and a step brother. And I didn't know where I fit in my family. And at an early age, I just felt genuinely disconnected from life, from my family, from my brothers. And, I acted out in all sorts of crazy ways. But here in Alcoholics Anonymous, our message is hope and the promise is freedom. And that was drilled into me when I came in here, 7 years ago. My sobriety date is June 15th, 2010, and I'm still a baby in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I still have a lot to learn. But for the grace of God, I've been allowed to be of service for the last 6 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, because it really took about a full year to go through this process. And I had been through this process, not this process, I had been through a couple of fourth steps, and I found myself at 2 years sober in the fetal position in the middle of a parking lot crying to my sponsor about sponsorship, and no one's doing what I want them to do, and no one's asking me to sponsor them. And he just kind of simply put it you can't give away what you don't have. And at that time, he was going through this Big Book Step Study process, and I saw a huge transformation and a huge change in the way he was living his life, his demonstration, the better of a message of Alcoholics Anonymous. He kept delivering to me, and I wanted to go through that process, and I had to wait for him to go finish his process so he could take me through, and I did that. So I don't know, what do we got, a half an hour to speak? When I was a kid, a lot of stuff happened. And, I had been poked, I had been prodded, I had been heavily medicated, I had been analyzed, both bodily and mentally. And I kind of grew up with this idea that there was something wrong with me. And for a long time, I didn't know what it was. My parents didn't know what it was. My brothers didn't know what it was. And I kind of just wrote myself off. I settled for less, and I sold myself short in all the experiences that I had as a kid, in my early teens and in my 20s. But I really just sold myself short, and just the way that I felt, I couldn't describe. I didn't have a language. I felt so alone, so disconnected, so unwanted, so unloved, so unworthy of this existence that I had, this body that I had, this mind that I had. felt like my whole life up until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was screaming at the top of my lungs and nothing was coming out and nobody was hearing. I always felt on the outside looking in, and more importantly, like I was banging on the glass and nobody even, thought the wiser. And anytime I did speak, it was without thought. And so most of the people that I spoke to, they just rolled their eyes at me. And I just demonstrated that over and over and over again. And I couldn't figure out why, like, nobody wanted to be around. I couldn't figure out why the phone stopped calling. I couldn't figure out, like, why my mom stopped texting me or, like, sending me stupid applications on, Indeed. Like, hey, this would be good for you, I couldn't figure it out. And I always knew that there was something missing. And I always knew that it was so far away, yet it was like so close I could touch it. But I could never really grasp it. And every once in a while I'd ponder those things, and every once in a while, more often than not, I drank and drugged so that I could sell myself short. So that I didn't even have to answer that question, like, what is it that I'm missing? It worked for me, right? And in Alcoholics Anonymous, I hear all the time, like, alcohol worked for me until it didn't. Alcohol worked for me every single time, and here's why. Alcohol, when used in, like, a chemistry setting, boils down the essence of everything. If you want the essence of lavender or pine, like, they use alcohol in its transformation to get the essence of something. And so what I mean by alcohol worked for me and it continued to work for me, it worked on me. Every time I drank, it was like pouring hot water over a piece of ice. Every time I drank, it broke down my spirit. And it continued to break down my spirit. And the illusion is that it worked for me. The reality is that it didn't work for me from the get-go. Like, it did something for me that I thought was illusionary. It gave me something that I thought that I needed because of this internal condition of mine and the way that I think. And in reality, it promised me everything, the world in all of its glory and every bull by the horn. And what it delivered was absolutely nothing. It delivered a scorecard that read 0 at 32 years of age. And I'm like at the low bottom drunk. I lost my career. I got arrested. I spent a year and a half behind bars. I lost custody of my kid. I was served divorce papers in jail. I lost my car. I lost my license. I lost everything, including myself. And the way that I felt before I did this process, like, I just felt alone. And I described that loneliness of an alcoholic. I could be in a room full of 1,000 people and still feel alone. I could walk myself backwards out of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting because, like, I don't compare with you. And, like, all these things that subtly built on that foundation of loneliness, like when you realize your friends aren't really your friends. Like when you go to call to have money put on your books and, like, they're not there, or when they're not there to bail you out of jail. Like, I realized my friends weren't my friends. And then, like, I get to Alcoholics Anonymous and I realize that I'm not really sharing what's truly important here to you guys. And slowly, like, the weight of, like, gravity just pushes me down. And then I realize, like, that foundation of loneliness was, like, the absence of who I am as a man, the absence of self. And, like, I find out that, like, I can't tolerate alcohol, and I find out that I'm sick, and I'm sick and tired of being told that I'm sick. And then I feel like I'm sick and tired of being told that I'm sick, and that there's a solution, there's a medication, there's an opportunity for you here. And I'm like, well, what is it? Like, I wasn't offered that solution. No doctor, no nurse, no lawyer, no fine, no fee, no consequence great enough offered me a solution. It just offered me more extra baggage. It offered me more guilt, more shame, more restlessness, irritability, discontent, and fears and doubts and insecurities. And, like, my luggage was packed. My luggage was packed to the brim, 2 years sober. And like, it came down, my life came down, and it was reduced to a 4-letter word, and it wasn't the F word. It was help. Like, help me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I have no purpose. I have no direction. I have nothing but just this bag of bones. And this consciousness that tells me that I am not good enough, and I'm not well, and I'm not ever going to amount to anything, and I'm never going to measure up, and I'm never going to be anything that I want. And I met this man in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he offered me the solution. Like treatment centers, like psychiatry, my grandmother, like all these people. They told me of a place where I needed to be, this like beautiful heaven on earth. But nobody ever told me how to get there. And that's what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous. You can look at all the world's religions too, and they'll tell you of a place where you need to be, right? This place of euphoria, this place of absolute freedom. And nobody ever told me how to get there. Nobody ever offered me the solution, like the steps. And for a long time, like I thought the steps got people sober. But you got to be sober to do the steps and have an experience. And like I got like 27 arrests, 14 assaults, and 5 DWIs. Like I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous since I was 17. I was forced to go, right? And like all I did was look at the clock and like, you know, find the first meeting where the lady would sign my stuff, and then I'd be like, all right, I can forge that, and I would do that. Like I was a pro. I was a pro at getting away with doing the bare minimum. Until the bare minimum like was so bad that I had to do the absolute maximum. And so like I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they describe this threefold disease. It's, you know, mental, physical, and spiritual. And mentally, without alcohol, it manifests as fear, doubt, and insecurity. And physically, without the allergy, without alcohol, I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. And like without alcohol, my spiritual malady is the internal condition, which I describe as guilt, shame, and remorse. Because like I always knew that I could have been doing something better than what I was doing and what I had been doing lately. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And then like I go through this book, through the doctor's opinion and Bill's story to identify like the allergy, identification, you know, there is a solution, which is like the segue in between, you know, the physical and the mental, and then you get to like more about alcoholism, and it starts talking about the disease of the mind and like where it manifests mentally, and then it smacks me in the face with we agnostics, and I'm like, oh, so like I have a body that can't tolerate alcohol, I have a mind that can't keep me away from, that can't keep my body away from alcohol, and I'm like sober. And it starts to suck. Like, and my response is like, embrace the suck. And I'm like, but I don't want to. Like, I don't want to feel. I drink essentially because I don't want to. I don't want to feel this stuff. And like today, I mean, you know, going through this process, like I'm told I can't tolerate alcohol, but like more importantly, without alcohol, I can't even tolerate myself. And it's awful to be around me, and I'm awful to be around myself. And no matter where I go, no matter how like far I go, no matter like what rocks I crawl under, I can't hide from myself. And like Donna said earlier, like this, like Alcoholics Anonymous is great and stuff, right? And they're like steps 1, 2, and 3, and help people, help, you know, save a person a seat, and like buy him some fellowship, and get him a cup of coffee, and think of others. And then like there's this cataclysmic event that happens where they're like, all right, stop doing that. Here's a mirror, and look at yourself for the next however long it takes you to get out of your own pain. And that was that 4th step. And it's not hard. It's a little bit of self-sacrifice. It's a little bit of like not getting to go to the pool party and not going to that barbecue. And the thing of it is like any event, anything that I had to sacrifice, I thought there was never going to be another one for me to experience. And so like at times I balked in that 4th step. But like what I didn't understand is like everything that I sacrificed for that 4-step and for my relationship with God and for that unblocking, like God was going to deliver tenfold. He's going to give me 20 more barbecues and 20 more pool parties and 20 more beach trips and all that stuff that I thought that I would never, ever, ever be able to have. And like, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I just spoke last night too, and it was like I heard this person just say, she was like, we are ordinary men and women, and this was prior to political events, so like now we are ordinary people that are put into extraordinary positions to overcome the disease of alcoholism one day at a time. And when she said one day at a time, and talked about being ordinary and leaving the ordinary to us and the extraordinary to God, like, that was powerful to me. Like, they were speaking a language I could identify with. And I was amazed, and I was like, I wasn't even shocked. Like, I wasn't even appalled. I wasn't even like bamboozled or like swindled out of like the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like when they said like, oh, like we're going to talk about like, you know, all the controversial topics in Alcoholics Anonymous, and of course we're going to talk about God, like I wasn't shying away from it. I knew. There was something deep within me that knew that like that was there. I just had to get over like my pride and my prejudices and like my economic status and like who I am as a man and like all that stuff. And it talks about like getting rid of the hidden lurking emotions and the hidden reservations. And the day that like my sponsor told me what those looked like if my daughter died, like I'm not drinking. And if my grandmother died of Alzheimer's disease, like I'm not gonna drink. And if my uncle died, the only person left on my father's side of the family, if he died, like I'm not gonna drink. And like those things did happen. My daughter didn't die, but my grandmother died. I have a beautiful, healthy, happy daughter. God forbid anything happens to her. But like some serious stuff happened in Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous is that like Alcoholics Anonymous and the people and the alcoholics of Alcoholics Anonymous allow other people, other alcoholics, to be alcoholics until they can recover. Like there's no other place on the face of this planet where like you're not going to be condemned, you're not going to be shunned, you're not going to be like judged or criticized or like pushed out if you make a mistake or if you say the wrong thing. Yes, there'll be some judgment, yes, there'll be some criticism, and I don't really care. Like my seat is a really expensive seat. I don't even like this one. I like the folding metal chairs. It means something to me. It represents something to me. I'm not attached to it, right? Like I was attached to a lot of things that I thought made me who I am as a man. But like attachment isn't about like everything that I own. It's so that everything that I own doesn't own me. And nothing owns me today. I can walk a free man wherever I go, and I can offer a solution, and and what that looks like I don't know what God is, right? Like all I know is that like there's like this combination of God, right? Like what is God? And if God is absolutely everything, then like let's identify everything. Like he is the air, he is the moon, he is the sun, he is the stars, he is the loving embrace, he is the patience, the tolerance, and the kindliness, and the understanding and effectiveness of absolutely everything all at once. Like we are literally experiencing God. He created all of this so that we could experience it, whatever it is, whatever that creator is. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. And before, like the change of heart and the change of mind and the message of depth and weight that like passed the disease that centers in my thinking and went straight to my heart and changed my absolute life forever, like that is what God is for me. Like it's a beautiful, undeniable thing, and it's as plain as the nose on my face, but like I can't see it, I can't feel it, I can't touch it, I can't taste it, I can't direct it, right? But all I know is that it flows in and through me time and time again, and the only way to tap into that flow is through prayer, is through meditation, right? Like that's how I established my connection with God, and I felt absolutely effing stupid when I prayed. I mean, like, I was like, what am I talking to? I'm praying to this thing that I don't even understand. Like, why am I on my knees? Why am I rolling over out of this, like, beautiful, like, luxurious, comforting bed with a beautiful comforter to, like, just be, like, kind of flicked with the shiver of chillness to, like, get to this place where I need to find God. And for a long time, there was this thing that I had, like, I was trapped in this, like, this thought of, like, Western thought. And it was like, up and down and left and right and black and white, and there's no in between. And I heard this guy, not from AA, but he's like this, I don't know, 12th thing Mason or whatever he wants to call himself. But he says, like, where do you think God comes from? And for a long time, I thought it was like outer space. I thought it was from the sky. I thought it was like the sky dude with like a lightning bolt. And he mentioned the word inner space. Like God comes from inner space. And I was like, wow. Like inner space, internally. And so when the pandemic hit, like, I didn't take it as you have to go inside. Like I took it as an invitation to go within. And what I did in those 2 years is like, we did the Meta Zoom verse, and like we did all that. And like I did it to the best of my ability. And I did it to the people who were willing. Because like we're here because we want to be here. I mean, it's Saturday morning, 10:30, 11, I don't even know. And like we're here because we want to be here. We're here because we want to hear the message of hope. And that's all we really need. Like, I don't need to physically see it. Like, all I need to do is hear it. Like, you talk about being restored to sanity. Well, insanity is unsoundness of one's mind. And I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I was too drowned out by, the deadly worldly clamors within. And when I'm restored to sanity, I can actually hear my own thoughts. And those thoughts are like connected to God. They're connected from my heart to my brain instead of constantly having to take the trip from my head to my heart. And like today, my life is absolutely beautiful. I used to hang out in crack houses, shooting galleries, bar rooms, whorehouses, and like deeper, darker, sordid places. And today I don't. Today, like I got my master's degree last year in clinical mental health. I own my own home. Like I have beautiful relationships with like all of my friends. Like I tell them absolutely everything and they tell me absolutely everything. It's kind of like steel on steel, and it's a beautiful place to be. And like I hang out with like doctors and nurses and collaborate with like all these types of people, and like for a thought, for a second, for a moment in time, like I used to contort myself and drink in large proportions just to not be myself for a second. And today, like I want to be myself. I want to live in this skin. I'm no longer uncomfortable in it because, I don't know, God resides there, I believe. So if you're new, if you're struggling, if you felt the same way that I felt, the product of this work is what you see sitting up here. The product of this work is the people who identify out there that offer a solution. I never see anybody do the actual work in Alcoholics Anonymous. All I see is the product of the people who did the work in Alcoholics Anonymous at their respective occupations, homes, and it's a beautiful thing because I know that they sacrificed their time, their energy, their love, all that stuff that they thought they were missing for this relationship with God through the 12-step process, the way that it's laid out, and their lives are absolutely commendable. Like they say, like, if you can drink like a gentleman, my hats are off to you. Like, no, if you can do this work and have an experience that'll change your life, my hat, my clothes, everything is off to you. Like, I don't need, right? Like, I will give you everything. And it's funny, like, the experiences that I've had in Alcoholics Anonymous, like, I've sponsored a lot of people, and like, I don't even call them my sponsees. Like, it's very possessional. Like I call them the gentlemen that I work with. And the more that I work with other alcoholics, the more God reveals what I need to work on myself. And the more that I work with alcoholics, they expose and introduce me to parts of myself that I haven't even met yet. And I'm like on my 40th year of life. And I got a long way to go. being happy, joyous, and free, and I can't wait to see what that looks like. I still want what you have. I want to thank you for my life and for my life. I want to thank you for my life and my sobriety, because like without you, I wouldn't have one. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's supposed to be beautiful.